listen to because you are about.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Awakening Aphrodite. I am your hostess, Amy Fournier. This show is all about inspiring you to live a fit, healthy, and fulfilled life in mind, body, and spirit, as well as to help balance your masculine and feminine energy. Tap into your true source of power, your intuition, and your authentic self. Today, I have a very special guest that I'm excited to share with you. Her name is Joanna Rushton. She's the co-founder and director of Bhavana Organic Farm and Cooking School, and it's in Australia. She is a mind, body, food, and performance coach, and she just happens to be an amazing organic chef with not one, but two best-selling Amazon books, one of which is Rocket Fuel on a Budget, which I can't wait to hear all about that. She's also a faculty member of the International CHEK Institute, and she's an international speaker. But one of the coolest things about Jo is she's also an artist like me, although she's a much better artist than I am, that's for sure. But wow, this woman is she's so multi-talented, I just can't even believe it. It just keeps going on, and I know you're going to be in love with her because she truly embodies the holistic approach, the mind, body, spirit. And she teaches people this because she has walked through the fire. And she probably is still walking through the fire if she's alive, and she's going to get into that, I'm sure. But without further ado, Jo, welcome to Awakening Aphrodite.
Thank you, Amy. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yay. And you are originally from London, but you now are in Australia. Is that correct?
Yes, I moved to Australia. I was a backpacker that never went home. So I left to, backpack around Australia in 98 and ended up staying. In fact, it was, I think, 8 years before I went back to London.
So how does Australia compare to like San Diego? I've heard it's similar.
It is. It's very similar. We've got, beautiful sandy beaches. The weather obviously is very similar. And I think in a lot of ways, different parts of Australia, New South Wales, culturally is quite similar. We have pockets here in Australia around New South Wales and Byron, which is where we have the organic cooking school, that is very, very open and expansive in how we view holistic health. So I think that's the main areas where where we can feel that there's a synergy and a crossover.
So the mindset, yeah, that's awesome. And did you find that they were very welcoming to you as, well, I guess you were British, right?
So anyway, it's more welcoming, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
I did. There was something that felt at, home to me when, and I had that same experience also when I was touring around America. The first time I landed in America when I was 18, I didn't know anybody. I'd finished catering college, and all I wanted to do was work on a ranch. I'd grown up with horses, and I wanted to be a wrangler for a season. I just wanted to be a cowgirl for a season.
That's awesome.
And coming from, England, that's kind of the absolute opposite of what we would do. So when I landed in America, I felt the same. I had this, feeling of just coming home. And when I traveled around Australia, that was a very similar feeling. I can only compare it from the fact that being born in England, growing up in England, there was always a part of me that just didn't feel like it fit there. Can't really put words around it, very much just a feeling. And yet when I left and I landed in America, I knew nobody. I was, going to go and work on this ranch, and knew no one at the time, yet I felt more at home than I did at home where I knew everyone. And I had that same feeling when I came to Australia, where I landed. I was traveling with my girlfriend at the time, and we both fell in love with Australia. And I think within the first 3 months, Amy, we had both said, if either of us get the opportunity to stay, that's what we would pursue.
Amazing.
And we did. We both got sponsorships to stay. Towards the end of the 12 months working holiday, we both got offered sponsorships to continue. And I took up that sponsorship, and then I got sponsored for a residency. And then from that residency, I applied for citizenship. And so now I'm actually a citizen of Australia. It's my permanent home. And, I go back and visit the parents, as I did just last year during COVID in September. I managed to get what they call a compassionate leave visa, because obviously with all the borders and the international borders closed, you weren't allowed to travel unless you had circumstances where it fitted into that category, and I fitted into the compassionate leave. My parents weren't well, they're elderly, and so I applied and managed to thankfully go home and spend 3 weeks with them. So
Isn't that amazing?
yeah, well,
But you said that when you first went to Australia, you just felt a sense of familiarity, and you felt like immediately like you were almost like home. I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, it's amazing to me how people have such a misconception about loneliness and being alone. There's a difference, right? And you can be not alone, but it be extremely lonely. There's other people around you, and even in a relationship. But does someone really know your soul? Do you have real intimacy, and connection? And the same, I think, even goes for environment. Like, we resonate not only with people, but with environments. And it's so amazing when you get a clear message from yourself, your soul, whatever you want to call it. It's a feeling, right? Can you tell us, Joe, what that feeling is like, so people can try to, everyone's looking for that connection with their soul for guidance. So what did that feel like for you? Can you put it into words?
I think, Amy, I've had that deep feeling or yearning at different times in my life. I remember, the very first time, I think I must have been like, this is a bit of an odd story to share, but I must have been about 11 or 12 at the time. And I remember sitting on my bed, and I was actually having what felt like an out-of-body experience. I was looking at my body, but my arm didn't feel like it was attached to me. And I was looking at this arm going, okay, this is really weird. And I was literally, looking back, I understand, in hindsight, what that experience was. And I remember thinking to myself, through that experience, I was having this feeling of, I'm not from this place, but I've come for some reason, some purpose, but I'm not from here, but I've come here to do something. And I was literally listening to this voice that was telling me, I know you don't really feel at home here, but you have chosen, you've come here, and you've come here to do something. And I had a lot, in that moment, I had a lot of peace that came over me.
Cool.
There was just a lot of, I went, okay, not that I understood it at a intellectual level, because I think that when we have these feelings, they're not of the mental construct. It's not coming from your mind. When that feeling of being at home, or that feeling of deep inner connection, where you are feeling connected to what I've come to know as your divine presence, that's not done through the mental body. It's not done through our mind. It's not done through our personality or the ego. It's done from a deeper part of ourselves that is our heart's consciousness. It's done through the portal of consciousness within our heart chakra, or not even in our heart chakra. You have to go through your heart chakra to access that portal of consciousness that connects you deeply to that thread that connects you to source, to all that is. And yes, it is hard to put into words, and we try to understand it and create some sort of mental construct of the mind, so the mind has some sort of understanding of what it is that I'm saying. But in truth, we have to go beyond the mind to have an experience of that deep inner connection that, as you said, so many people are yearning for. They're seeking it, they're craving it, they're desperate for it. And part of the soul's journey is to seek outside of themselves first for that connection. That is part of the soul's growth. It's part of our journey here as a soul, to learn to come back to oneself. There was a beautiful poem by the Navajo Indians that basically wrote that seed of light has been placed inside of us because it's the last place that we're bound to look. And that's our journey, right? We step outside of ourselves, looking for that connection, looking for that meaning, that purpose, until finally we've gone far enough, created enough separation within ourselves and within others. And often then the pain and the suffering that comes with that is the inspiration and the catalyst to come full circle and to bring you back towards, walking back towards yourself. And that's certainly been my experience and my journey in many different areas of my life. If we look at the wheel of life, and sort of like a wheel has multiple spokes to create that connectivity, there's lots of areas in my life where that feeling of being connected wasn't one that didn't, it was a feeling that took a lot of courage to trust. Let me put it that way.
Well, it's really funny you just said that, because one of the questions I just wrote down was, when you hear these messages or whatever you want to call them from your soul, you know, how do we know, like, how do we have confidence in them to know, like, it's legitimately something coming from your soul versus like your ego or a stupid voice or your imagination, or, you know, and all these things, like, you know, is that really legitimately a message from my soul, or is it even my programming and paranoia? Like, what is truly me and what is not me, and what is truly legitimate versus something, you know, superficial?
I think that's a wonderful question. How I will answer it for myself is what my experience has been as I've started to discern between those two voices. I always ask myself, is the voice that I'm listening to honoring myself? Is the voice that I'm listening to honoring others around me? Is the voice that I'm listening to being kind to myself? Is the voice that I'm listening to being kind to others around me? And if we're honoring oneself and we're honoring others around us, then the voice that you're listening to will have an intention to create harmony and balance. And I feel that the confusion people have with what it takes to create harmony and balance, and if we were to explore for a moment the word that I think is most misunderstood, unconditional love. It's one of the most misunderstood words, because when somebody is trying to discern between the voice of their ego versus the voice of their soul, and you take on board what I've just said, does that voice honor another? Is that voice being kind to another? Is that voice creating harmony and balance? The young soul on their journey will start to look at, well, is that a loving thing to do or not? They'll start to measure or listen to the voice based on, well, is that an act of unconditional love, or, you know, is that me being loving? And when we start to try to understand or measure or analyze what we're doing through unconditional love, we really have to understand what unconditional love is. Because unconditional love, it's not a thought, it's not an emotion, it's not even an action. It is a high state of being where your frequency, where your vibration, your consciousness is expanded out of the third dimension into at least the fifth, somewhere between the fifth and seventh dimension, where you're sitting in a state of compassion, where you're no longer in the third dimension polarized by emotion, being pulled left and right by emotion. So there are 3 steps that unconditional love asks you to come into. Because what is unconditional love? If we really asked ourselves, well, it's a state of being that has no conditions. Well, let's consider what creates a condition. A judgment, an emotion, a feeling, a thought. They are all states of consciousness that are going to create a condition. So unconditional love asks you to come into acknowledgement, acceptance, and embracement of what is, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. One of my greatest learnings to be able to sit more consistently in that state, and it's not a state that I'm in all the time, as we know, we move in and out, we move in and out. We expand, we contract, we expand, we contract. But the more that we practice the expansion and the lifting of our vibration through various tools and practices that we can talk about, then you over time start to harmonize your own field of consciousness, where you become more of the observer than the participator. And the more you become the observer of what's unfolding around you, rather than participating in what's unfolding around you, the more you are able to observe your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and be less controlled by them or less attached by them. Unconditional love doesn't ask you to like what life is bringing to you. It doesn't even ask you to it doesn't ask you to like it, to understand it, but unconditional love asks you to accept it in whatever form it shows up in. And that's one of the greatest challenges that we have, which is why, you know, with what we teach in Paul CHEK's system, when we talk about the stages of love, we teach that unconditional love is a state of being that you can only offer yourself. Learning to come into a place of honoring, accepting, and embracing all parts of yourself, no matter what they are. So that means your shadow aspects, the parts of yourself you may not like, the parts of yourself that you're in judgment of. That's why when it comes to unconditional love, the first place that we start is with ourselves. So when we're looking to listen to whether or not the guidance is from our soul or our ego, the first thing that we have to come into is a place of unconditional love, which means to acknowledge and accept and embrace what is, no matter what it is. Because whilst you're wanting it to be different, whilst you're wanting it to not be what it is, whilst you're resisting it or in denial of it, you're not accepting it. When you come into accepting something in your life, a challenge, an adversity, for what it is, and that can, you know, I read a beautiful quote the other day. It said, acceptance not time, heals. And often we are governed by the lower mind's idea of what healing is, and it takes time. Acceptance is what heals. Accepting what is, just the way it is, that's what heals. And acceptance is a choice, and it's not bound by time and space. Now, in the third dimension that we live in, that is very dense and everything feels so much slower, which is why we feel the density of our physical being so much, we will associate time as a construct that helps us to come into a place of acceptance. I need time to accept. And really what you're saying is you need time to choose, to make a choice to come into acceptance.
Okay, good. See, I'm glad you said that part, because I get the whole acceptance thing, but just we all have our personal preferences and our values and our boundaries. So there are things that are not acceptable to certain people, of course, obviously certain terrible behaviors or what have you. So how can we be in a state of acceptance, but still have our personal boundaries and values honored, and still have a growth mindset, and still have goals, and strive to, quote unquote, make things better for ourselves or the world? We can't just accept everything. But so to your point, how does all that work together?
So, right, I'm going to bring it back to, again, an understanding of what acceptance is.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance isn't about agreeing with what is taking place. It's about accepting that it is.
Mm-hmm.
You might not like how someone has spoken to you, but for as long as you're not accepting of it, you're in denial of that's what they've just done. They've spoken to you in a way that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're using the word in a way of saying, but I'm not accepting of that, well, what's that really saying? You're in denial of it. You're in resistance of it, because it's still taking place. It happened. So when we're not in acceptance of something, we go into resistance of what is. We go into resistance of reality, of what is actually happening.
And then we suffer.
And then we suffer because we go into resistance of it. I don't want to accept that. I don't want to accept how that person's speaking to me. Well, but they are. They are speaking to you in a way that you feel is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the moment you say, I'm not going to accept that, you go into resistance of what is actually reality. And that's what creates the pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than going, okay, this person is speaking to me in a manner in which I don't like. The acceptance of it isn't, and this is where people get confused with unconditional love, because they think that if we're in a state of unconditional love, we just roll over and let people do whatever they want to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's not unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
Unconditional love is coming to a place of accepting what is. When you come into a place of accepting what is, then you can get clarity over what the next choice is that is in the highest for you. So if someone's speaking to you, and I'll give you in a moment a situation in my own life that was very big in terms of coming to acceptance with. But if we just use this simple example right now for a moment, whereby, someone's speaking to you in a manner in which you don't like, and you're choosing not to be in acceptance of it, then there will continue to be conflict, confrontation, disharmony, because you're in resistance. You're not willing to accept, which doesn't mean liking or letting it continue to happen. Acceptance is coming into acceptance of what is in the moment, just as it is. This person has just spoken to me in a manner in which I don't like. I come into acceptance of that rather than go into resistance and conflict. What is my choice in this moment? What is my choice if I accept that this person has a different perspective than I do? Do I push back and prove my, if two beliefs are coming in and they're opposing beliefs, and you're not in acceptance of that person's belief, instead you are wanting to prove your belief is more right than their belief, then you're going to go into war. You're going to go into a battle. It's going to become the battle of the wills. My belief, my perspective is more right than yours. And yet what would happen if we decided in that moment that that person has a different belief to mine? I might not agree with it. I might not like it, but they have a different belief system to mine. Now, with that acceptance and the honoring that they are entitled to a different belief system, because the law of oneness doesn't ask us to all be the same. The law of oneness asks us to accept all the different colors, expressions, beliefs, opinions, cultures, ideas, and find a way of honoring all the different expressions that are an expression of the one.
Now, how can we do that in a practical sense when the actions of other people can maliciously affect us?
Then the very first, once you come into a place of accepting what is, then you have to decide what is in the highest potential for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand that unconditional love isn't about a loving act towards someone else, and when I mean a loving act, I mean anything that's got emotion attached to it. That's understanding love from the level of the mind and the level of the personality and the level of the ego. You have to understand love at the level of spirit that asks us to go beyond the emotion, beyond the thought. And this is...
Gosh, I mean, how many people can really do that?
But this is the journey. This is the journey, right?
Yeah.
This is the journey. So I give you, an experience for me as early as I probably started to become challenged by my sexuality when I was, well, my earliest days of it was, probably at school, having attractions to, my female teachers and kind of.
So like 10?
Yeah, I would say, probably around 9, 10 years old. And, I just went through high school, didn't question it other than was aware that there was this energy there. And then later on, when I was 18, I had an experience with another woman that confirmed to me what I'd thought for many years. And at the same time, I was, at that point, I was split. I was like split down the middle. Half of me was in absolute resistance.
Wow.
Non-accepting. Whereas the other half of me was just like, oh my God, this is exactly, yes, this is, this is what was making, I was pursuing my truth, an expression of my truth.
And just to put this into context, give us a time frame, like just for the people listening, because we have a lot of young listeners to the show, and they might not realize that maybe a couple decades ago, it's a total different situation than it is today. So as far as the acceptability of it in society. So give us like a time frame, how long ago this was when you were going through this.
Oh, well, I'm 49 this year, so
Yeah, 3 decades.
do the maths. I'm
Yeah.
shocking at maths. So,
Yes.
well, over 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really like not okay to be bisexual or homosexual or trans, anything. I don't even think we had the word trans back then. So this was really, you were split right down the middle.
I was, and to cut a long story short, in terms of the journey of coming into that acceptance, it required me to reconcile with all the different parts of me that were in resistance,
Oh my God, yeah.
right? That were in judgment, that were in denial. So there were lots of parts of me that weren't accepting because of the fear of rejection, because of the fear of
Abandonment.
And also, a belief that it was wrong.
Morally. Mm-hmm. It's a religion.
Okay, so through the journey of meeting all these parts of myself, I really had to do an audit, an inventory. Like, looking back now, was I conscious that I was doing this at the time? No. This unfolded through many years of the courage to take off the labels. The courage to really look at, where is it that I'm living my life, seeking approval, seeking other people's appreciation,
Okay, so, but how old were you when that actually started to happen? I know you don't want to get too much into the weeds of it, but that really is the crux of it, Joe. Like, for anyone listening who's struggling right now, like, I am confused about my sexuality, or, oh my God, I could never tell my dad what, my preference or any of that. Like, so you just try to please give us just a little bit as to how you came to that in yourself, to get the courage to, come out of the closet, so to speak. And, just what that was really, when was that? Like, how long ago was that? Like, how long did it take to get there?
From the age of 18 to 26, I lived 2 lives.
Literally? Like, you had like a boyfriend and a girlfriend?
I had a boyfriend in the very early years, but by the time I was 19, 20, so yes, at the very beginning, for the first year, I had 2 lives.
Yeah.
Boyfriend, girlfriend. And then I just had 2 lives where I just had a girlfriend, but no one knew that I was gay. No one knew. I would make out that, just still waiting for the right guy to come along and make up all the relevant stories that kept the cover going. And then what drew me so you've really asked a question now. So,
yeah. Well, this is like such an important thing, because I just, so many people are struggling with it. So I know we can tap into your wisdom, someone who's been there and done that.
Well, my beautiful girlfriend at the time, and we had 12 wonderful years together, and we're great friends still. And she and I were each other's first. So she had never been in another relationship. She had a boyfriend as well. And there came a time where she and I were living out of each other's pockets, literally to the point I was sharing an apartment with my brother in London.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to a head because the two of us used to go out with my brother a lot, socialize, etc., etc. And my brother started to take a fancy to my girlfriend.
Oh.
And so it's a little bit like soap opera in the respects that because the two of us, we were living this double life, which meant that, we had to be seen to flirt with others. At least we thought we had to be seen to flirt with others because it was the only other way that we were going to keep,
the facade.
Yeah, keep the mask and keep the cover. It was an act, we were playing an act, and we had to do whatever that took to protect ourselves. To the degree in which we were in fear, we needed to control, and control equals protection. So we got to the point where we realized that one of my brothers was, starting to have some feelings towards my girlfriend. And that's when we realized that we needed to, nip this in the bud and say something. So that was the very first outing, if you like, the having to say to my brother. And it was then a number of months later, at not a very good time of the year. I didn't intend to share with my parents. The reason why I shared with my parents was I was tired of lying. I was tired of trying to maintain two lives. I've been brought up to tell the truth. I've been brought up to be who you are and be proud of who you are. And yet I had these conflicting ideas of who I had to be for my parents to be proud of me, and etc. And that idea, yeah, absolutely. For the greater percentage of people that find themselves gay and the journey of coming into acceptance of that, my story is, I would say probably tame in regards to many of the horrible stories I've, heard of people being trapped in their own fear of sharing their identity for what it might actually cost them in terms of their life, let alone relationships, their actual safety themselves. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, it was a Christmas with my family, and both brothers by this time knew, and it was the most bizarre unfolding, Amy. Both brothers said to me, "Don't you dare say anything to the parents over Christmas." And I looked at them both as if to say, like, I've got no wish to say anything full stop, let alone over this particular period. And anyway, by this time, both brothers, one was engaged, and he had his fiance there over Christmas. And then my other brother, he had a girlfriend by that time, and she was there over Christmas. And my girlfriend, who my parents just thought were a friend, she was there over Christmas as well. And then my dad and I, one afternoon evening, I think it was, it was actually Christmas Day, late afternoon. We had been drinking quite a lot.
Oh, geez. Okay. This is going to be basically the what not to do.
I know we record. There we go.
Oh, there we go. We lost you for a minute, but we're back. Okay, I was just saying that this is basically turning into the what not to do.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, you can, this is how we learn, right?
Okay.
So that's, as I shared with you when we were on the podcast together, on Paul's podcast, it was at that point that I was obviously emotionally charged, and my subconscious had all this fear around what would my parents think. And so I ended up coming out with this question to my dad as we were playing a game of pool: what would be one of the worst things any of you kids could ever do in your eyes? And blow me down, he just turned around and said, well, you're not gay, so, you know, really nothing.
That is truly mind-blowing.
My face, you can imagine my face just dropped.
And Joe, he had no clue. I mean, come on, he's your dad. I mean, really?
No clue.
How
No
about
clue.
even your reaction to that? Like, was he like,
then,
yeah, all right.
My face dropped. Apparently my mum had an idea. My mum, but she had never said anything to my dad. So
Yeah.
my dad had no idea.
Well, she probably knew he'd flip out, so.
So anyway, he took one look at me and he said, he was just really looking like this and was, so are you, what are you saying? And then of course, you know, the conversation came about, and I said, oh, right, well, okay. And he said, why do you think you are? And I said, yes, I do.
All right.
And then it became, how do you know? You know, how do you know? And I said, well, you know, Alex, who's here, is my friend, et cetera, and he went, oh, really? And that's how it came out. Now, you know, there's a whole other unfolding that took place after that that's, you know, not necessarily relevant to the conversation, but you know, things didn't go well for a little while, and I faced my biggest fears, which were my parents not accepting.
Yep.
Not accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that non-acceptance, there was a lot of disharmony created, a lot of separation created, a lot of judgment, a lot of rejection. And it took probably a good 5 years to bridge that gap, to bridge that separation. But you know what I will say, Amy, is that the lesson that I have learned through being brave enough to own who I am and own all parts of myself, and not apologize for any parts of me and how they choose to express themselves. That facilitated a massive opportunity for family karma to be healed. A huge opportunity. Because not only in my own journey of reconciling all of my own prejudice, and when I first felt that I was gay, I was in so much rejection of myself. I was prejudiced towards gays. That's how much I was rejecting myself. And so not only has the journey of coming into my own self-acceptance been a journey of expanding my consciousness and healing judgments and prejudices in so many different areas of my life, it's also been an opportunity for my parents and my siblings to do the same. Because now, if they really wanted to come into a place of healing, Now they had to take a look at their own prejudice within themselves. They had to look at the parts of themselves that said it was okay for a friend's daughter or son to be gay, but oh my gosh, now it's ours. It's actually in our own backyard. Now what do we do with that? Because whilst it was at a distance, there was some part of themselves that could say that it was okay. But now that it's actually one of their own, they really had to meet all parts of themselves that we really weren't saying that it was okay.
So what is that about parents and feeling like their children are reflections of them? Like, to me, that just comes back down to like the whole caring what other people think, and, how do we rectify that?
This is the soul's journey. The soul's journey of being able to see that what is one is in the whole. So in other words, what I see in you is in me. Whenever there is the law of reflection, which is when someone or something comes and creates a trigger within you and you react, it's showing you that that person is a mirror. They are mirroring. But it's important to understand that the mirror, they are holding a mirror to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're reacting to is inside of you. So a lot of people think that the law of reflection is a direct mirror of what the other person is projecting. So for example, let's say you got angry at me and that became a trigger for me, and I react to your anger, but the reflection may not be anger that rises up within me. I might react and I might actually have sadness that comes up within me, or hurt, or resentment. So the law of reflection isn't about what the other person is reflecting to you. The law of reflection is about what rises up within you in response to what that person is holding a mirror.
See, I love this because my show, Awakening Aphrodite, I talk about in episode 2, I explain the name of the show, and Aphrodite is famous, the Greek goddess Aphrodite. I'm sure you're familiar with her. She's famous for holding a mirror. And of course, she's also known, one of her attributes is the goddess of love and beauty. And a lot of people mistakenly think that mirror is her being narcissistic and, vain and looking at herself and admiring her beautiful self in the mirror. But it's not. It's about the ultimate feminine principle, which you're talking about now, which is the principle of self-reflection. The mirror is a symbol of self-reflection. And to me, and I'd like you to correct me if I'm off on this, but it's similar to contemplation. Or maybe I should ask you, how is self-reflection different than, is it the same as contemplation? Like you're reflecting on something and weighing it over. Is that what you're getting at? The law of reflection?
Well, the law of reflection, you always know when you're experiencing the law of reflection, because the very first thing is you're in reaction.
Oh, okay.
You're always in reaction. So we have the law of resonance, which is like attracts like. So that's the same energy, like attracts like. Mm-hmm. And then you have the law of reflection that repels. And so when you experience something in another that makes you uncomfortable, or you react to, or that you go into judgment of, you are being given right there the opportunity to self-reflect. What is it that person is offering me to take a look at within myself. Why do I get angry when I'm in that person's company? Why do I feel sad when I'm in, why am I triggered by jealousy in that person's company? Why am I triggered by anger in that person's company? Why, when, I have a conversation with this person, do I feel judgment towards myself? So these are the reactions that we are experiencing through the law of reflection when somebody comes into our life with a gift. The law of reflection is a gift. Someone comes and offers you a gift to reflect, as you say, reflect upon what is coming up within you, what's rising, what's alive within you right now.
But why do you think that it's human nature that so many people, rather than going to reflect within, immediately project it right back and then blame the other person or point the finger outside, and to me, I think it's because a lot of people don't have the resources to know how to deal with, or the tools to know how to deal with these negative emotions. They just don't know what to do with them. So they literally can't deal with them. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. I think that the very first thing is fear. Because we have been taught to associate with any negative emotion as wrong.
Yep.
It's wrong to feel sad. It's wrong to feel angry. It's wrong to feel hurt. It's wrong to feel jealous. It's wrong to feel judgment. So, from a very young age, we're conditioned, programmed to believe that, any negative emotion is wrong. And so we have a heightened subconscious and unconscious heightened awareness to move away from pain, right? Push pain away, which is what we're doing when we project an emotion that rises up and is alive within ourselves that is painful, whether that's anger, whether that's jealousy, hurt, judgment. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. So we are, not only are we conditioned in society, but we are hardwired as primitive mammals to be alert to what creates danger from, fight and flight, from the absolute primitive reptilian part of our brain that is hardwired to be aware of danger. Now, add on top of that the programming and the conditioning that we've had as a society to fear our emotions because of the identity of who we are if we are an angry person, the identity of who we are if we're a sad person or a depressed person. And so we want to get rid of how we feel. We want to get rid of anything that's uncomfortable, anything that creates us to feel uncomfortable or not safe. And the illusion is that we create this illusion that we're getting rid of it by projecting it back onto somebody else. So we'll project the anger back onto the other person. We'll project the hurt, the judgment, the fear, the resentment, whatever it is. But, I want to say to everybody listening here, nobody can give you fear. No one can give you fear. It is a choice. No one can give you anger. No one can give you hurt. And I know that what I'm sharing, for some people that are very trapped in the emotional body or the pain body, will find what I'm sharing very hard to swallow as a truth. And I really, I understand that. And my compassion goes out for you because I was once there and I know what that feels like. But having moved through that and learned the tools that I apply today to continue to help myself move through those challenging times when they arise, I want to share with people that there is a different and far more empowering and self-loving and self-nurturing way of relating to yourself. And it actually comes through the empowerment of realizing that what is alive within you is absolutely your own. It's created by you, not the person standing in front of you that you are blaming for your anger. That anger is created by you, not the person in front of you that you're blaming for projecting the anger onto you.
Okay, just for argument's sake, though, for someone listening, if they said, but no way, Joe, it's definitely coming outside me, because if that jerk just, insulted my daughter or whatever, he made me angry. It's not coming from in me. Like, I am definitely reacting to something outside me. So just for devil's advocate here, explain what you mean by this in practical sense.
Well, the first thing I'd ask them to do is just take a breath. Okay, just take a breath. And what I'm sharing with you here is that this is all about our free will. What is free will? What is that? What is free will? So isn't it funny that when it suits us, we will embody our free will and own that we have choice when it suits us. Right?
Yes.
And we will own our power, we will own our willfulness, and our willfulness, our will, is the gift that we have been given to make a choice in life.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to say to somebody who is, well, no, it's, that person is making me angry. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be angry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm going to say to them is, well, in that case, are you saying that they have control over you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, they don't have. Well, if they don't have control over you, then what is the part of you that has control over whether or not that person makes you angry? So, you have to break it down, and it takes time. It takes time to sit with somebody and to break the construct of how we think and to break it down into small pieces, and to play devil's advocate, just as I did then, is to say, well, do you have choice or don't you have choice? Because, 1 minute you're saying you do, but when it suits you, but now when you feel like you have no control, which is, and this is a very difficult word to get our head around as well, when you feel like you don't have control, which is an illusion. This is the hardest thing for victims, people of victim consciousness, because the hardest thing for a victim to come into an understanding of is that they are choosing to be disempowered. And of course, the victim feels like they have no choice. It's very challenging to bring them into a place of understanding that that's actually what you're choosing. Because whilst they're the victim and they're absolutely embodied by their circumstances, and that they believe everything outside of them is why they feel the way they do, and they're blaming their internal experience of what's alive within them, and they're blaming that experience on what's happening outside of them, it's very, very challenging to bring a person into a different perspective of how it is that they are participating in what is being experienced, and that they have choice and power over what is being experienced. And of course, we started this conversation right at the beginning by you asking me, how do you know when you're listening to the guidance of your soul versus the guidance of your ego? Well, as you take a journey of introspection, self-reflection, once you are on that path of asking yourself more questions, you can't unknow once you know.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start to ask yourself, anyone who really believes that someone else is responsible for how they feel, I'm going to ask you, how does that serve you?
Yeah.
Whilst you believe someone else is responsible for how you feel, how is that going to serve you? Where is their empowerment and ownership and responsibility in that belief? Because now what you're really saying to me is that you believe other people have the ability to control how you think, and what you choose to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that is your current belief, I'm going to ask you, how does that serve you? How is that supporting you in life?
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel it's not supporting you, if you feel that current belief that you're holding, that other people are responsible for how you feel, if you feel that that's limiting you in some way, then I'm going to start to ask you, are you willing to start challenging that belief? Are you willing, if you feel limited in some way in your life, if how you think and feel about how life unfolds for you, if you feel limited by those beliefs, are you willing to challenge them? Are you willing to work with them, to evolve them to a level of awareness and understanding that is more supportive?
And I guess that just starts with by being open to possibly that there's more there, just to not have a fixed, closed mindset, like it's just the way it is, and it starts with just a willingness to even consider there might be another way to look at it, or there might be more to the story. I mean, that's the beginning of the crack in the dike, right?
That's absolutely true. And right there, what do you have? You have willingness, which is the application of your will.
There you go. Yep. Cool. Yep. Nice. So I find it so interesting that we're talking about self-acceptance so much, not only in our choice of our sexuality and our relationships and who we are in the world. It's such a challenge though, to how do we really accept all of who we are when we all have that shadow side that is there? But I mean, help me wrap my brain around accepting the parts of myself that I'm not proud of or don't like very much. Like, how does that actually work for somebody to live with it and kind of come to terms with the parts of themselves that they really don't like very much or wish were different, or trying to change or improve, if you will?
For myself personally, it has been through the understanding that without these parts of myself, that all parts of myself are what are helping me grow and evolve. The parts that we don't like, it's like, how do we learn? Do we learn when we're making a mistake or when we're always getting things right? So how do we learn and grow in life?
Mm-hmm.
We learn and grow when we make mistakes. Now, those mistakes can show up in a number of different ways. A mistake at work, or saying something and acting in a way that in hindsight you're not proud of. and we behave in a way that we don't like that part of ourselves. That process of acceptance, first step, acknowledge this part of you.
Back to what you were saying earlier.
I go, I am all of it. I can be angry, I can be selfish, I can be manipulative. I am all these parts. I am all. This is, what we're talking about here is it's such a big concept, because it asks us to really understand the nature of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
It asks us to understand that the only way that the divine, whether you want to call that God, source, universe, whatever name you want to give to the creation energy that flows through us, that is spirit, that we are having an experience of. If the universe, if God, if the divine is unconditional, what would that truly mean?
Yeah.
What would it truly mean for God, the divine, the universe, to be unconditional in its presence? It would mean that it would be all accepting of. All accepting of every expression of, no matter what that was.
That is a hard one to swallow.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
It is. And we have to first and foremostly, again, so I'm going to ask this as a question out there. For all, including you and I, for the parts of us that we struggle with, that we sit in disappointment or judgment, do we bring more harmony and balance to that part of ourselves when we judge it, deny it, resist it, reject it? Or do we bring more harmony and balance and peace to our being when we come into acknowledgement of it? If I said to you, I've been a stepmom for the last 12 years to 2 boys. I say to any parent out there, if your 4-year-old came home from school and said, I got into a fight at school today and Jack, he called me some really horrible names, and so I called him some really horrible names back, but I feel really bad for what I did. Are you going to turn around and say, well, so you should, because that's a really horrible thing that you just did. You should be disgusted with yourself. Or are you going to say to that little 4-year-old, come and tell me about your day. Come and tell me about what unfolded. Come and tell me about, why do you think he said those things? And how did you feel when he said those things? And how did you feel when you said those horrible things back to him? And what do you feel you learnt from that? Then you would frame it to a 4-year-old. But what I'm saying to you is the language, the energy, the consciousness with which you would embrace that situation or that part of yourself would be one of loving kindness, just the way you would to your child.
Well, what strikes me about your example is you're not meeting the energy in kind. You're actually meeting the energy from the opposite polarity. Like, rather than coming in, like you said, with that judgment of, you idiot, why did you do that? You're right. You should apologize. That was completely stupid. And this is how we talk to ourselves, right? Like, you idiot, why you're doing it again? Why don't you know better? What's wrong with you? And that's that's meeting it with the same energy, as opposed to, I love your example, because what you're proposing is to meet it with the opposite polarity, to get some movement of it, to get it to move, to produce an effect, is going to be more effective by coming from the other perspective. Very interesting.
Well, you have to meet it with the vibration that you want it to be lifted to.
There you go. Love it.
More
Yes.
separation just creates more separation.
Yes.
So judgment, ridicule is all separation energy.
Plus, it produces a defensiveness. Even if the person thinks that they're wrong, I think it's just human nature to defend yourself. Even if you know, like, oh, you're right, I wish I didn't do that. I think we're inclined to defend ourselves just to keep our sovereignty, I guess.
And in that, we are experiencing more separation.
Right, because it just sets up like adversity.
Yeah, so more of the same equals more of the same.
There you go.
So if we're wanting to, as I said, I've really learned to ask myself in challenging situations, what choice is going to create harmony and balance for me right now?
Okay, I got a question for you on that one, because you've mentioned that a few times, and this is really important. How would that approach or question work for someone who didn't have a good self-concept, who didn't have a strong sense of self-love, and was maybe even a people pleaser, in that they're putting other people in front of themselves? So how would your method work for someone like that, which is a lot of us, right?
Well, often it works, just as you've said it, because that unconscious program of being the people pleaser.
Yeah.
Often they will, with the intention of choosing harmony and balance, they'll unconsciously be choosing what creates harmony and balance for the other person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than what creates harmony and balance for themselves.
Exactly.
And so the first step in this, of course, again, is to come back and ask, is this actually creating harmony and balance for me? And not just in the short term. And a lot of people that are people pleasers, I was for many, many years in my teens, early 20s, I would say. I didn't start to really embrace that part of me until I was in my early 30s. And I really started to see. In fact, it was in a meditation I had, it wasn't long, maybe a few months after breaking up with my first girlfriend after 12 years and going through a lot of healing. And I remember sitting in meditation, and I remember asking, please just show me, give me some idea, what is it that I'm needing to know about myself right now that is going to bring me more peace? What is it that I need to know or do to have greater self-awareness for what creates disharmony?
Wow, great question.
And in that meditation, I had a little voice. It said, get a pen and write this down. So I did. And I was given 4 words. I was literally told, write these 4 words down. And I was told to write down approval, appreciation, acknowledgement, and acceptance. And I wrote them down. I went, okay, what do I need to know about these?
They all begin with A's.
They've become known to me very fondly as the 4 A's.
Oh, there you go.
And I said, I stayed in meditation and I said, please show me, what is it that I need to know about these 4 words? And I was told, this is your agenda. Every one of your choices has an agenda. And behind your choice is the agenda of needing other people's approval, appreciation, acknowledgement, and acceptance.
True.
And I must admit, I sat there, bawled my eyes out for about an hour as I sat and opened to the wisdom, to the truth that was being shared with me. And it was just like so many parts of my life, so many choices, so many times, so many scenarios, so many events where my agenda was just that.
Please, that's like the universal quest. I mean, I think we all share that. So you how did you do it? Because you figured that one out. I got to hear it.
I did. I probably spent the next 2 years in a lot of self-observance. I made a pact with myself that every time I made a choice, I would sit and ask myself, I'd be honest, what is the choice really to go? This yes, if I'm saying yes to someone, I made a pact to really ask myself,
Why
am I saying yes? And I sometimes that still meant that I said yes. I didn't have the strength or the courage yet, even knowing that there was an agenda there. I didn't have the strength or the courage to say no. But it was a process of becoming more and more self-aware. And then through that process of awareness and, I mean, I've been, I guess, working for the last 15 years on myself. The last 7 in a far more compassionate way. But I've had to learn that. Guys, this is an hour's podcast, whatever. I'm sharing a state of consciousness which has taken me 15 years to get to, right? This stuff of self-love, kindness, acceptance, learning what your agenda is. And, it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to stop being the people pleaser overnight. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. Radical change happens. But the average person, and, I'm okay to say that I'm an average person, it's taken me years to sit gently observing my choices and the agendas, the motivation behind my choices. And when I've done that, it's shown me where my insecurities are, where my vulnerabilities are. And through my practices of meditation, I've over the years, it's taken me very deeply into working with frequency. And this, this is, I guess, what I will say with people is that you can't heal through the mind. You won't heal and change your behavior through the mind. The mind's what created it in the first place. And I know that for many, it's going to be challenging to understand what it is to drop out of the mind and into a heart-centered space. Because that took me a long time to find that place. And I still today go from that place back up into the mind, back into the stories, back into the judgments. And then I've realized that's where I am again. And I go, okay, I need some time to find that expanded state again. And we're talking about we're talking about consciousness, frequency. You're not going to expand your frequency. You're not going to feel lighter by trying to work things out through your mind. And I'm sure, you know, a lot of your viewers are very familiar with, you know, chakra work and energy body work. And this is where your karma is held. And just to be really clear on what karma is and isn't, karma is both balanced energy and unbalanced energy. So karma that's balanced, it's coherent light frequency. Karma that's not balanced is incoherent. And you'll experience that through anywhere you're feeling in separation in your life, in judgment, in blame, victim, conflict, confrontation. Just go back to the law of reflection. Anytime you're experiencing the law of reflection, you're just meeting your unresolved karma. You're just meeting the energy that's alive within you that's not coherent. It's not balanced.
And to me, that's really the ultimate of being conscious. Just right there, we can almost use that as a definition of being conscious is you are examining yourself, you're examining your choices, you're bringing your awareness. You're not an automatic pilot.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. And that's the first step, because I love what you said about, yeah, this is about approximately an hour show. And, you know, you're a woman who's, you know, lived your whole life to get where you are right now. And we're not going to explain your secrets within an hour. But, you know, I think it's great to at least leave people with the idea of this is where you start, though, is to your last point, you know, is the law of reflection. And just even start by examining, being aware to ask the question of why did I do that? How do I feel? What, you know, what is that all about? And reflecting and contemplating on yourself and your choices. And even where did that idea come from? Or, you know, is that even my idea? Is it true? What, you know, what is the highest expression of love that I could do right now? And if I am I doing it so the other person likes me and I secure that relationship with my family or partner or whatever? Or am I doing it because it's my truth or it's best for me? Or, you know, it's just asking all these questions. But Joe, that takes energy, that takes effort. You know, it's lonely being conscious. You know, it's hard work to be conscious. It's much easier to be unconscious and go about like a sheep and, you know, not really thinking. But, you know, the price we pay for that is what? Fill in the blank. What's the price we pay for remaining blissfully unconscious?
Not a lot of bliss.
Not true bliss. Yeah.
Not true bliss.
Yeah.
You know, and you see, the other thing is to, you know, take the pressure off. Take the pressure off, because it's so okay if you choose to remain asleep. It's so fun. It's okay too.
There you go. I love it.
It's okay too.
Yeah. And let's not take it all so damn seriously, but for that matter, right? It's supposed to be fun, for God's sake.
Your soul has no idea of linear time. It doesn't experience itself through incarnations. Like, it doesn't see itself as having this life and then this life and then this life and then this life. It's just one big, long, continual experience. And
it's all happening at the same time anyway.
Happening at the same time. And so,
hard concept, but
exactly. So, you know, and the greatest and hardest mind-blowing concept to get your head around is that you're eternal. So, you know, there is no rush. There is no hurry. Just be brave enough to just be brave enough to own that you are the creator. Be brave enough to own that truth, that you are the creator. And if you don't like or enjoy what you are creating,
Mm-hmm.
then know that you have the power to change and transform. All that you create is created from the heart of source and can be transformed back to the light of source. Everything is created from the light. Even the darkness is created from the light. And all can be transformed back. So in layman's terms, everything that you create in your life, once you take the responsibility, you choose to own. You choose to own your free will. And that you are a co-creator, you're a creator being. You have come to learn and master what it is to be a creator of matter, to be a creator in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
You've come to master the law of matter. When you accept that, then you'll start to own your power.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll step onto your path. And the doors will open, the people, the opportunities to support you to come into your truth, because the higher the truth is, the more harmony, balance, and peace you experience. There are many, many truths, but they are all at different levels of truth.
What do you mean by that? They're at different levels of truth.
Well, one person's truth can be causing them pain, suffering, and this, disharmony in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, what they're choosing to believe as truth is what's causing them pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
The higher the truth you go, the more you're willing to open your mind to a greater understanding of what is.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a bit like getting into a lift. You get into a lift of 36 floors, and you get into the lift and you get out at the 4th floor. Well, what can you see? You can only see what's true relevant to the 4 floors below you. Mm-hmm. So you are responding and reacting to life based on what you know of what you can see, smell, touch, taste through our 5 senses, based on the 4th floor that you've just stepped out to. Mm-hmm. You get back in that lift and you go up to the 13th floor, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that was there. I didn't see that. I didn't realize that. No wonder that person's acting the way they did. I didn't realize that was going on for them. Didn't see this, didn't see that. Oh, look at how, wow. Now you're up at another level of truth that is more expanded. And the more expanded that truth is, the lighter it is, the less dense it is. The more free we are of that suffering. Because we hold on to less stories. We're down on the 4th floor and it's all, you're at play with all these different stories and you can't see everything else that's contributing.
So true.
And then you get up and you get up to go to the 18th floor. And that's the journey of the soul. When it's in its smallest incubation. I'm rereading a book at the moment that Paul CHEK gifted me a few years ago. It's called Everything is Here to Help You. And it's by Matt Kahn. Mm-hmm. And, it's a beautiful book that I would say to anyone who's willing to start to explore the nature of the soul and how the ego is encompassed within the soul. The ego is like the young child, and the soul is the evolved, wise elder. And the ego is just learning, growing, and evolving into the old, wise elder. And so as that journey of evolving and growing, then you move through those you move up the elevator with that understanding, and with more understanding comes less suffering.
Mm-hmm. So true. Joe, what would you say to someone who's afraid to live their truth? They're just not there yet. They're just stuck in too much fear of the whole judgment thing. And where do they start?
Acknowledge that that's where you're at.
Okay.
Just be able to say to yourself, this is what I'm choosing right now. If someone is, the most powerful thing someone can say to themselves is, I'm choosing to be stuck.
And actually verbalizing that makes you aware of like, oh my God, is that true? Like, and then it's almost a little bit of a wake up call right there. I guess I am choosing this, and then you have to justify your choice. You're choosing it because of this. And, because a lot of life is timing,
It is.
might not be the right time to speak your truth or live your truth per se, but usually people get in enough pain where the pain of keeping it that way is less than the pain of changing, or they change because it's just too painful not to. Finally, it's not that it's going to be painful either way, but they choose the change way because it's less painful than staying where they are.
That's exactly right. When the resistance to change is less than the resistance to not changing, that's when change will occur.
Yeah, and that's unique for all of us. So as we get toward the end of the show, I would love to hear you share with us, how do we surrender to the mystery of life? Because you're such an advanced soul, and I do want you to tell us about your mystery school. And excuse me. So folks, as you can tell, listening to Joe, we didn't even get into all your books and everything. You're being this famous organic celebrity chef and everything else. But she's a very highly evolved soul, and she coaches people and mentors people on spirituality. And so I've heard you mention surrendering to the mystery. So how does just the average person who doesn't even think about mystery, they're just paying bills and going from A to B and C, and like mystery, mystery in life is probably scary because it's the unknown. But how do we trust about this unknown? How do we stand brave on our own sometimes, and trust the mystery that life loves us and has our back when it doesn't look like that at the moment?
Again, it comes back to a willingness to be open, a willingness to be curious. We can all relate to varying degrees what it was like to be a child. We can all relate to varying degrees what it was like at different stages of our life. Even if our childhood wasn't great, there will have been glimpses, moments of magic, of awe, of just that childlike curiosity. Anyone who's conscious enough to want to explore the mystery of God, the mystery of themselves, then just become curious. Become curious as to what breathes you.
So become childlike again.
Yeah, become childlike again. Go and do more of what you love. Just honor yourself enough to go and do more of what you love.
And then we get into the self-love thing, though, that because it comes back to like giving yourself permission and feeling worthy, that you're not being selfish by doing things that you love and are important to you, but just because you love them and it feels good. So why do we feel guilty about that kind of stuff?
we conditioning again.
Yeah. So how do we combat that? Like, how do we not let that rule us?
By constantly reminding ourselves that in truth, we can't give what we don't have.
Yep.
And I'll challenge anybody who is giving when they're empty. In other words, they're giving because they're still seeking the approval, the appreciation, acceptance, acknowledgement. Therefore, they have expectation and they have attachment. And they have attachment to those expectations. And so I will, anybody who can't go and do more of what makes their heart sing, anybody who can't do more of what opens their heart and makes their heart sing, anybody who's out there as the martyr, pleasing others as a way of feeling lovable,
feeling worthy,
feeling validated, and
I know all about that.
yeah, absolutely. Me too.
God, still working on it.
But the archetype of the carer, the spiritual learning for the archetype of the carer is to learn how to care for themselves.
Wow, right on.
That's the shadow side of that archetype. And they learn how to care for themselves by giving to the point where they have nothing left. And the great creator, the beautiful Mother Earth, will lay you down.
Yeah.
If you're not listening. If you're not listening, she will lay you down.
Take you right out.
And so then, then you're left then with the choice again. Do you listen when you're flat on your back and you got chronic fatigue and you can't get out of bed? Then it's another opportunity to listen. Or are you just going to again blame your circumstances or blame others for your situation or believe that this is my lot and there's nothing I can do about it?
The choice. Yep. True.
Again, every opportunity comes back to asking yourself, is we have a saying, if you're never quite sure what it is that you want in life, have a look around you.
Yeah, I think was it Arthur Beasley, the one with the universal principles? Paul CHEK talks about that.
Arnold Patton.
Excuse me, Arnold Patton. Yep, and and he talks about that if you want to look at what you're choosing subconsciously, look at your life or something like that. Yeah.
If you're never quite sure what it is that you want, look at your life, and if you don't like what your life is, then you're choosing it unconsciously, but nonetheless you're still choosing it.
That is so true and just so powerful. So then it gets into, so you got to do some soul recovery work, and you've got to do some shadow work. You've got to excavate the shadow in you. And I guess, how do people do that, Joe? Do they need a skilled therapist to help them do shadow work?
Look, I do in my practice. There's 3 areas that I focus on. I do a lot of inner child work.
Good.
Which is
critical.
Absolutely paramount for anybody that feels so trapped in their life circumstances, that are either suffering from addictions or unhealed traumas.
Yeah, or just the whole Groundhog Day thing. They just keep repeating the patterns and they can't figure out why, and they can't break it. It's like, what is going on? Yeah.
So, how I help people in my practice is whether it's one-on-one, which is through inner child work. I use an energy healing therapy called the universal rays, which is working with that person's unresolved karma.
Awesome.
I do a lot of Akashic record readings and working with the unresolved karma that is shown in relationship to that record. So it's one thing, as you know, as a record keeper, it's one thing to read someone's record and to be able to tell them what happened, etc., etc. But really, what good is that to somebody, right? What's important is if you're going to read an Akashic record, an event that has occurred for that person, what's important is that you're receiving the consciousness that that person has created as a result of that experience.
What do you mean you're receiving it?
Well, I receive the beliefs, the consciousness, the unresolved karma that that person has created having had that experience. And that's then what we work with to resolve. We work with resolving the beliefs, the attachments that that person has created as a result of having that experience in whatever lifetime that soul had that experience. Because the unresolved karma, when it's not resolved, is what we carry forward, and we just recreate from that unresolved energy. So if we've got self-limiting beliefs that haven't come back into balance, haven't come back into coherent energy, then we continue to recreate from that self-limiting belief. And that's what we work as scribes or Akashic record keepers to bring back into balance.
See, this is so critical. I feel like the world is finally getting to the point where it's ready for this type of work, because you and I both go back decades. I think we both started out as personal trainers, right?
Yeah.
4 decades ago. I'm going on 30 years. And, you know, Joe, we could talk all day long about diet and exercise, and Lord knows it's extremely important. Not that I'm putting that down at all, but look what you're saying. I mean, if you can help someone resolve these deep issues, that's miracle work. That's a game changer. That's the person who just, can't stop overeating, or you like you said, addictions, or, just repeating bad relationship choices all the time, can't get out of their own way, or, what have you. Until you resolve these deeper spiritual, emotional issues, you will never resolve your physical body issues. You'll constantly be the person fighting yourself, and 1 step forward, 3 steps back, and can't figure out why, right? And we need to address our whole being, which is the mind, body, and spirit. There's no way around it. Eventually people figure it out if they live long enough. Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and then I run a self-mastery course, which in total is a 3-year. It's a 3-year course, and I teach this course. It's a channeled course by one of my teachers, who's an embodied channel. She works directly with a council of 33 masters, and this course that the first year is called Path of Light. We're just about to start a new Path of Light in February. And
okay, so just for the recording, so that's February 2021, your new online class starts.
Yes, on February the 24th.
Okay, and if someone's listening to this recording prior to that date, can they still get in? And if they're listening after the date, will you offer it again?
They can still join prior to the 24th. It will be a late registration, but yes, that's possible. After the 24th, no, I really close
for 3 years.
Once we start class, because there is a whole ceremony that
it's
we
a progression, probably. Yeah,
it is. But I do hold it every year. And the first year is all about the masculine consciousness. So the path of light is about the masculine consciousness. It's about our ability to choose and take action in life. And that is what the masculine consciousness is about. So it's really teaching people how to work with their masculine consciousness, to come out of that lower paradigm of relationship to the masculine in the manner in which we often do. We assign what I call kind of third dimensional concepts and ideas about what the masculine energy is about.
More like cultural traits, like your stereotypical traits. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stereotypical traits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even to the point of how we behave. Oh, that's, anger is masculine, and
Yeah.
and here we're really understanding consciousness of the masculine, and the consciousness of the masculine is all about the use of your will, what it is that you choose, and the actions that you take in life. So when you take action, when you make a choice and you take action in life, that is your divine masculine right there. That is the masculine consciousness. That's the masculine heart of God that you're working with. When you make a choice and you take action in life, that's the masculine heart of God. And that's what we work with in the first year.
Wow, a whole year. Wow.
Yeah. And it's the path of light. And it's very illuminating because people get to start to look at their choices and what it is that they are creating, and how much they are creating from their ego versus their divine presence or their soul. And they start to learn what it is to come into alignment, aligning their will. Who is making the choice? The free will of the ego based on its agendas, its needs and its wants and its desires, versus, am I listening to the voice of my soul? And so that's the whole year, is an illuminated journey of listening. Every week we have a lesson where we receive an energetic attunement from the masters, which is a very high frequency vibrational attunement into your chakras and your energy bodies, that as you have them every week over the course of the year, it's like having, it's like downloading a new program. It's like an upgrade, like you would upgrade your computer during the course of the year. Every time you do new updates on the computer, you're expanding its capabilities based on what's available to you. So when you're receiving these attunements, to the degree in which you're willing and opening to receive, because that's a choice, it's a choice for you to open to receive. As you choose to open your chakras and receive what is being offered to you from the Council of Light, then you have an energetic attunement. And that, along with the lessons and the work that we do throughout the year, helps to lift and expand and work with that unresolved karma, work with those self-limiting beliefs, work with those attachments, work with those judgments. So it is illuminating. It's for those that are really wanting to take a look at themselves and be guided and supported and held through that process of the light being turned on and all the shadow aspects of yourself that up until now you've become very good at hiding or resisting or denying or avoiding, all of a sudden are going to be there looking at you going, love me, acknowledge me.
What are some of the results of graduates? Because that sounds pretty scary. So tell people what the reward is for getting addressing that and confronting those demons. Like what are the results that you're getting from the program?
So, the very first thing that I will say is, yes, people do at different stages. It is confronting. I'm not going to lie. It is confronting.
Mm-hmm. It has to be to work.
But I am going to say to you that there is so much support.
Okay.
not just me. Like, you are held. And
Perfect.
again, you know, you have to go beyond mind to really understand what is there holding you.
Mm-hmm.
And what you come out with. I have had students, you know what, pop onto my Instagram and listen to some of the video testimonials.
Perfect.
It changes. People have a change in their personal relationships. Some have a renowned healing and profound change within themselves, first and foremost. It all happens within, from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
So to the degree in which you heal an aspect of yourself, whatever aspect you are given to work with, because Ishtar sits in channel for every student and receives a personalized focus for that student for that year.
Wow.
They are assigned 3 ascended masters. They're assigned a trinity of masters to connect with and work with. And based on what they are given, which has been channeled in the highest potential for their soul. If you come and do this work, it's what is in the highest potential for your soul at this time in your life, based on where you are on your journey. And you are, as a result of the focus that you're given, you will meet the parts of you that are being asked to be met, so that you can grow and evolve, so that you can move beyond the limitations that you feel limit you, so that you can move into a higher potential for yourself and your life. And that might show up in someone's relationship with their family. It might show up in their relationship to their work or career. It might show up in their relationship to their personal significant other. It might show up in relationship to their kids. So what people experience as a result of this is a huge shift in their life, in the paradigm of what they're living, relative to what they're being asked to meet within themselves.
And I love the most important point is that you're providing them the supportive community. You're providing the container, and all change happens in a container. We need a container to hold the space for the change to occur. And you are providing a safe container for people to feel held and supported through the process. So what a beautiful offering. So Joe, please tell us how people can find that program, can find you, your social media handles, your Instagram. It will be in the show notes, everyone, for people driving or whatever, or out walking the dog. But could you please just share it with us, all the things that you want people to know?
Sure. You can get in touch with me or learn more through joannarushton.com. It's my website. My Insta handle, Jo_Rushton_. My Facebook page, Joanna Rushton. And yeah, any information on any of the courses that I'm running this year, you'll be able to find that on my website. You can Instagram, message me if you would like or need any further information. But that's pretty much where you can get in contact.
And do you have a newsletter list in case, like, say they just want to get notified of your next course or your next book, or do you have that?
I don't do a newsletter. I tend to just do more posts.
You'll post it on social media. So follow Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. Great. Wow. Well, in closing, this has just been incredible. I do feel a little bit badly because there was so much content I wanted to get into to talk to you about all your knowledge about being a healthy, organic chef at a budget. I mean, right there is a whole show by itself. and all the other amazing things. I mean, all your work with the CHEK Institute and with your farm, the farm that does cooking and demonstrations and teaching people. There's just so much there. But, you know, I really feel like what we discussed on the show today was just so critically important. You know, I think it was just divinely guided with our discussion, even though all those things I just mentioned are very important. I would have loved to have tapped your brain, but at the end of the day, I feel like ultimately people need to understand and learn how to love themselves fully and completely, the good and the bad, how to reconcile that, how to not feel like a victim, how to feel empowered, and how to heal their wounds so they can truly feel fulfilled and a lightness of being. So I think maybe that's why the discussion was predominantly about that today, rather than all the other wonderful topics that is Joe Rushton.
It's part of trusting the mystery to unfold.
There you go. And that's what I had asked you earlier. So you went ahead and demonstrated it.
Right? We didn't control anything.
That's right.
You know, the conversation went where it needed to go, and we allowed it. That's letting the mystery unfold.
I love it. And, you know, we accomplished that. Then I accomplished my mission, is just to try to get out of the way, right? Just get out of the way of divine love and light, because God knows I screw it up all the time. So, Joe,
You know,
thank you.
human. That is being human.
Yeah, well, you're too kind. This has truly been such a pleasure, such an honor. I've been hounding you to come on my show for a while. You are a busy woman, and rightfully so. I just wish you so much success. So everyone, please do check out the show notes. Follow Joe to see what she's up to, and definitely check out that mastery course. It sounds like a deep dive into elevating your life. Wow, sign me up. Joe, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, everybody. So you know what to do. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review and just take a couple minutes to quickly type in a couple of thoughts of how you thought it might have given you value or anything at all. And I really appreciate it. You can find out more about me on my website, amyfournier.com, which is also in the show notes. And of course, I'm FitAmyTV on social media. And so thank you all so much for joining us. I already can't wait to be with you again. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.